Okay.
Nice.
Since most people are here and we got a good crowd of folks and they're all waiting, I'll roll. How's that
Let's
sound?
do it.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Daniel.
You're welcome.
Yes, thanks, Dan.
We're gonna try. This is my attempt. I don't mean to bore you or tell you something you already know. I just sort of uh, I'm trying to learn Python, and one of the things I do tend to do is I get a page of notes together, and I build up the notes slowly, trying to fill out the facets what I should be learning about it. And in one case, somebody had mentioned on my side of the world that, Dan, you really got to go out there and you should just like, do a presentation on what you do just before you go into learning fugue. So what I'm presenting here tonight is called Learning the Python Programming Language. What it really is simply the stuff I initially put together to figure out what exactly do I got to learn. And I've sent this document on over to Josh. He has it. I'm hoping it's going to be available to you guys. Starting off, it's just that Python's been around for a while. We're around 3.8, and that's the 3.81 is the number I can recall immediately. That's the new standard. They left the 2.7 behind. They're still continuing to do bug fixes, but they've moved on into the into the 3 range. A doorstep document, which is actually one of mine, is when you're trying to build something. You're trying to build a document that gets you up to the doorstep of a language. In this case, it's I was aiming to learn Python. This document is to get me up to the doorstep of learning Python. It gets thicker, but it's after you start learning when you can start adding details to it. So, why Python? As a software engineer and lifelong learner, learning new languages is a necessity. They come in handy in bits places. We use them as sometimes Python uses duct tape. I've run into it as people sometimes write entire production build systems in Python. In other places, it tends to be a quick sandbox, so you can basically construct very fast solutions to customer problems. And at the same, it'll be an initial solution, but it may not be the total solution, but it gets you up and moving. The chances of rare cosmic events aiding and abetting you in avoiding learning Python, such as taking off in the TARDIS, have a very small chance of happening. So, just a question. Can all you guys see this? Okay, you're cool. Okay, that's the one question. I'm sorry, I had got to ask that
Yep.
question. All I know is a chair, and yeah, maybe it works, but I'm in right now. Python can be a little daunting, and so this is just doorstep document. It makes it a little less daunting when you take a big chunk of something and chop it down into smaller pieces. Doorstep documents are a Danism. I call it, this is explanation what a doorstep document is. This one's for Python, and this is what I'm hoping to go through tonight. You got definitions of an entity, which case Python, and then I've got bits and pieces for it from 1 through 11 to basically help me get through different segments, different things I rove around for when I'm looking to learn Python. And I rove for it. The idea is I got in this case I went for definitions of an entity, which was what is Python. That gave me some information for better Google searches, and I moved on to other things. And I'm going to try to touch on all of these tonight. My definitions of an entity. In this case, the entity is learn Python. That's my what, and my why is because why should you learn Python? Skills come in handy as tools to work with problems, and a large toolkit can help you stay employed and problems being solved. The how tells you how do you go about learning this thing. You first, at this point, know the entity. What you're trying to do is gather a better definition of the problem that you have in order to yield better searches, in order to yield a better breakdown of the information base you're trying to absorb. I use Wikipedia heavily to basically get some of the edges, the definitions. As soon as you get enough edges, you can resolve and get a better conceptualization of what you're getting into. So Python has a Wikipedia page, and it makes my first stone for the doorstep. You can actually find Python, the programming language, or Python software. Very first time I had Python, and unfortunately found the snakes. But I I went back. I remembered and patiently went over to, okay, software or programming language. I'll find it. I went over the Wikipedia gave me a pointer toward Python.org, which is the organization and language reference page, and it's a Python homepage. I went there trying to find stuff I can download, trying to find help I can use, and trying to find stuff I can reach for. And I found one that was sort of interesting and immediately usable was the Python wiki. The reason why the wiki is it gives you a bunch of terms which you may not even know exist anywhere else, but they are peculiar to Python. So you go to this primarily, you want to get some edges resolved, and this is a spot that'll help you getting those edges resolved. For tutorial, I went down to tutorial sites because tutorials come in handy. The reason I say text is when you watch a video, you are restrained to the speed that the presenter is giving you. Whereas with tutorial sites, you can jump around wherever you need to, mess with it, or go pound on it a couple times. Often you're in an editor someplace to see how things work. Um, so you need to collect some text-based tutorial. So text-based study gives you this. This is simply my repeat. But the quality of text-based tutorials give you is if you are, you're stuck someplace in a page, and you're doing some program and you really don't know some small bit of it, you can jump back to the text-based tutorial for that subject, grab onto it, and read through it rather rapidly, which comes in real handy when you're stuck and you just need some data. How do you do this? You can query. I can query on Google with the word Python tutorial, and then I sift the results for valid sites. When I say valid sites, because sometimes they refer to themselves. So you've got a site that's saying, yes, we're a great tutorial site, and all their links actually point to simply different copies of themselves on different it's a complete zero. You're not going anywhere. So I sifted for valid tests. Sometimes a site will be an excellent tutorial, but for somebody who's greatly advanced in Python. What I got for results, here's some results. This is just a line number, doesn't mean much. Okay. This is the hyperlink, and W3 Schools provides me with a lot of simple beginning tutorials. They don't have everything, but they do have a nice collection if you're simply trying to build together. Python.org also has a getting started tutorial to help people in the beginning. They go a little bit into, you can use this or you can use that. I admit most of my early Python, including Hello World, was actually done in Notepad. I use Python in a command line window. I don't have an IDE. I'm not using an IDE currently, but there is an IDE. Tutorials Point is another nice spot to look at. They have a lot, and they also test and check. It's a good site for a lot of things. Also, they also have interview questions, and I have interview questions as one of the items. And docs.python.org is once at the python.org site. You can get language reference for version 3 of the language is available there. There is Program Whiz Python programming tutorial. I glanced over it. It was fairly good, but I didn't spend 5 days on it like the rest of these. I just spent maybe about a half hour. So I really don't have anything in this explanation section. That's plain. Those of you who remember I Love Lucy and Desi Arnaz, this is it. I have to explain this. Wikibooks is another source. What I have is it's just wiki. It's usually just called Wikibooks. The cost of information is acceptable. It's free. Different points of views by different authors provide a fuller view of the subject matter, because some of them look at different aspects. This is important, so they focus on the spotlight this way. Others say this is important, so they focus the spotlight this way. it's important to actually have a good overview. So to say who does what and who gives you good coverage, I leave it to people. They should know that sometimes it's done from an entirely different point of view, so that they didn't miss something. It's just it is done from a different point of view. How do you find them? If you're on Google, you can query on Python Wikibooks up in a search box, and then you can cruise through the query results and collect those links that resonate with you. Enjoy Pi Learning Space on those branches. That is a weak term here when I say enjoy Pi Learning Space on those branches. The results are on the next page. And what I found was a fairly good body of results. There's a basic language tutorial. They're all wiki books. There's also a bookshelf. This is when I had explored the Pi Learning Space. This is an entire, not a single wiki book. It's an entire shelf of wiki books, all focusing on the Python programming language. There is a programs tutorial for Python 3. That's considered to be a good Python 3 reference. And there are other references here that come back in together, including a nice set of Python resources back in the wikipython.org domain. Another source is EDU resources. That's it from the educational area. What these are is schools teach Python, and they put their notes and stuff for their students online. In addition, some of these places have MOOCs, MOOC, which stands for Massive Online Open Courses. And they're available. And you can read the Wikipedia page on it for MOOCs. MOOCs are great because they're usually video, and I haven't found one that isn't video yet. But you're actually in somebody's classroom, and one of the ones I've enjoyed has been MIT's computer science program. You can actually see all the classes and with the teachers, and they'll present and they do their teaching in a classroom, and you can see people there. And some of these classes are Python. You can't say anything because it's a video. The prof's name is up there, but I never had the gall to send them an email other than congratulating them on a good presentation. I never wanted to bother one of them. To find these guys, to find MOOCs, you have to use the Google Advanced Search Procedure, and I gave the URL for that. If you do hit it up, you will get a search box which says Python site edu, and you'll get a lot of URLs for college, universities, or human warehouses that have courses teaching Python. You have to go through it and sift through it. You also will find sites that try to prepare you to pass Python certification exams. It's a case of you have to climb out on the tree and go find. For those who just want to look at MOOCs and see what's available, there is the link for www.mooklist.com, which will give you a big list of those. Did I lose the room? There's only 4 video images and one's okay. Let me go on to YouTube resources. YouTube has an interesting use for me. Number one, YouTube has a number of Python tutorials. You can get a list by typing Python tutorial in the search box at YouTube, and it'll give you a whole bunch of queries. Some people have a video for a certain topic at hand. I forgot how to do generators. Okay, run the generator tutorial. It's 11 minutes, 20 seconds. But what I found was that the short topic videos are fairly good. You can plug in well with them. There is one entire Python course which is 12 hours long in one video. I don't tend to bless it. I just tend to survive it. Also, I tend to just leave it alone. The videos I found that the videos in usually the first hour or two of Aircast, the biggest plus they provide you with is they actually talk about the tools they use to present the video. So you get all of a sudden the names of the software will come out. What did they use? Why did they use it? Why does the tool look really cool, but I can't find it anywhere online? You'll find this out in about, in a short period of time in those first videos. I tend to use the first few videos to determine what kind of tools I should have, what types of setups, and that kind of thing. I have found that some tools are not mentioned anywhere except in a video during the first 5-10 minutes. Corey Schaefer. Actually, if you search on Corey Schaefer on YouTube, you'll find him. He has a large number of tools of videos for teaching Python. Tech with Tim is another one, also on whatchamacallit, on YouTube. Tech with Tim is excellent because some of his videos are tools only. He'll compare, he'll compare PyMatch with another Py tool. He's very good at what he does. And CS Dojo is also very good for what he does. It's a case. Free Code Camp is another. It's a case of find which one syncs with you the best way possible. And I'm open for questions if anyone's got one. Okay. Looks like no questions. Let's see. Syncing back on here. Interview question sites. I ran into this ages ago when I was back in electrical engineering. Coding, there are coding questions and there are theory questions. And I find that coding questions tend to demonstrate that you have knowledge of the mechanics of the language. Interview questions that are on theory tend to target the theory of the language. Interview questions can also be coding. I think Mitch has got a quake in progress. You can if you Google query on Python interview questions, you can collect and sort questions and answers. Many of the interview question sites also carry the answer. You can expand the answers to fully illustrate the concept involved, because I have noticed that some of my interviewers have exactly the same questions I have, and if you simply repeat the text out verbatim because you've memorized it, they want it in your words, not in the words that came off the web channel. It is an excellent path of learning. It's one of the interview question sites is at Tutorial Point. They provide it with answers for many good reasons. One of which is that some people see it too. Some questions are theory, some questions are coding. Coding, when I was an engineer, I could always work through the equations like lightning. But when I had really bad equations or a suitably crafty problem set, I couldn't get the equations, but I knew how to solve the problem. So I went with the interview questions. There are Facebook groups.
Quick question on the interview questions. Yeah. Also, I got my Mystery Science 3000.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Fix that. You would expect there to be, or you would hope that there's alignment between the interview questions and all of the things that you're learning there, and all of the other tutorials that you've assembled.
Yes.
Do you find that's the case, or are they different? And if they're different, how?
The questions themselves aren't different. They don't jag. That is, the question listing is usually got 1, 2. Like they're numbered. Okay, they don't follow the order you'd learn. So what you tend to do is you can like pick out say 1, 5, 7, 82. Those apply to chapter 1, which you learned early on, and then other numbers will apply to like chapter 2, which you learned later. When I tend to use them to focus learning. What I do is I actually put the questions before I put the text, and then the idea is you're looking for the answers to these questions, and then at the end of the text block, I'll say these are the answers to the above questions.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Okay. The idea is, okay, you're looking for an answer. I can give you the question and then force you to look for it, and but what I really want you to do is pull it out of the material you're learning so you have a better retention of it, and that way you can try to present it in your own words when the time comes. I don't see them being presented at the same fashion that one would learn. In some cases, like there is one that's not U.S. based; it's out in the middle of nowhere. I can't shouldn't say that. It's not in the middle of nowhere. It's somewhere out in I think somewhere in India because it's one of the few web pages I've seen that actually have Hindi as well as English. And uh, I got the English version, and I was reading through it. It's like the hardest questions are the first questions. The later ones tend to be there's only very few easy ones out of 150 questions. 6 were easy. Most of the rest were intermediate, and at least half were very difficult. In some cases, the question was a matter of opinions, and then you had to, as a result, the answer actually says this opinion, that opinion, this opinion, but they tend to disagree on utilization, and it's I walked into a problem set.
Nice.
How am I doing?
Very good.
I'm,
Good.
I'm trying, man. I didn't want. I don't. I'm sorry if I'm boring any of you. My apologies.
You're doing great. You're doing great, Dave.
Okay. Interview question sites we just completed. I want to do. These two have been somewhat strange. Facebook groups. There are Facebook groups for Python and Python development. Why? Any data port in a storm. You never know when you can get an answer from these groups, and sometimes some of the people who are in them are actually very knowledgeable. They will, if you present a question and it doesn't sound like you're trying to get your homework answered, it's actually fairly, they'll at least talk to you. And I've used it in a couple cases for just to look to see what's available in terms of help. And what I've gotten has been a few of my cases. I've gotten excellent help. I was sort of surprised. You have to take it easy when you go through a Facebook group because people will put their homework in there looking for solutions, and I can't help them. I just say it's. I refuse to say it's trivial and laugh them off. I just keep scrolling by, and best of wishes to you. Google Groups is actually the names people would recognize now. I'm old enough to remember Usenet, so Usenet is still out there. It's still running. It's not as good as it was in the old days. It's got flooded with advertising. However, what I have found is every once in a while, somebody, or I think every 6 months, someone posts Python archives, which are comp.lang.archives was a Usenet news group which basically contained programming for various things across the board, but it was primarily just programming snippets for here, there, and everywhere. At some point, somebody had divided it up into different languages, and the Python archive usually shows a whole bunch of stuff nowadays it's Python, and I don't go that far for much. What I usually do is you do a Google search on the Python archive and get hold of that. It's a lot quicker, and you can tell by the updates. Also, since it's getting further and further apart, my drift on it has been fewer and fewer people are posting on the archive because I noticed none of them are ripped off. They're usually original work that's been posted to the archive, and that's not something I expected. There's still people posting and using it. I also use Stack Overflow like many other people, and Stack Overflow is written in Python, as I discovered when I was hacking it one time. There's a Wikipedia page on it. It's a great source of help and knowledge. I was actually I am using it to create the Shams of Python. If everyone here remembers Shams college outlines for education.
Yes,
I
I
am
got
that
the
old.
mathematical handbook.
Yeah. So I took the I had considered I don't know if there is a Shams outline on Python, what I did was I started organizing. There's another Word document. It's actually named Shaw's to Python, and what I'm actually going through it is whatever I pick up and can answer to a given section of Python. I put my examples in the Python, the SHAWMs, to try to be some type of SHAWMs for Python. Comes in handy when you got to cram for like a 20-minute exam, or you've picked up a 1 hour exam from one of the classrooms. They have programming challenges in addition to learning worksheets. They're 5 minutes to print out without any issues, or you can pump it into a Word doc, and then I actually do the exam. If they don't post the answer key, I'm screwed because I have no clue as to whether it's going to work or not. And it's more or less the directions I go to. There is a good tips and tricks, so you don't have to look them up on Stack Overflow. It's one of the results I get when I'm looking for Stack Overflow on Python. It comes in real handy, as they've got your usual problems and glitches have been posted there. For GitHub, it's a home to a large number of developers, and people contribute there. SourceForge is similar to GitHub, however, it works a little differently. The idea of a repository for a lot of work, that's GitHub and SourceForge. How it's done, GitHub uses Git, SourceForge may or may not. I'm not quite certain at this time, but SourceForge does the same thing. It's a large body of work. And having examples of working code gives you a supply of things to learn from. Google query on GitHub Python, you get all the results from Python projects on GitHub. And the results give you a host of repos that give you handles into the language. I tend to use some of this stuff to learn from. I want to find out how somebody's doing something. I try to find an example that may or should have it. Then I look at its code. Sometimes it is, sometimes it doesn't. GitHub in this stage permits you a chance to see what others are doing. My choice is I use Python to make utilities. So File Manager, and that's the name of a project, is bin Jolaman 10. To get a hang of working with the file system was one of the things I wanted to get hold of. I'm also working toward a file manager that I want to run in iOS, Windows, and Linux, as well as Android. And they already exist, but this is a case of the file manager is not what I really want. I want the skill set, and this is one way to target it. I'm also working on a Python interface library for Insteon home automation systems, because it has existed in the past for X10. No one I know of has yet upgraded for Insteon, and my concept was making a contribution to the open source community by putting it up on GitHub so people can use it. That's about it for there. Python UIs, I've really encountered two, tk-enter and PyQt5. There are more, but both use these most, and Qt5 has an older sibling called Qt4. tk-enter has its own Wikipedia page. I go for the edge. What it is, it's one of two interfaces for Python. It's related to the old tool control language at TK. TK gives you the graphical tools for processing, and that's more or less what I was looking for. Whereas TCL is the control language that lives in the back. You can get a query and get a plethora of pages. Use tk-enter, use the Wikipedia page for start, and little by little you'll find there are tk-enter some excellent tutorials. But I didn't really go after all of them for this presentation. This is supposed to be this Python. I use tk-enter when I need an interface and I'm trying to cobble it together in a hurry. I consider it a light toolbox application. Some people will disagree with me. I should consider, if I want to make a large application, using it. And now for PyQt5, it does have its own project page. And I borrowed its explanation for what it is. Qt5, Python is Python. Qt5 is the interface tool. But Qt5 is also used in C, C++ embedded applications. And I wanted experience with the Qt5, so I'll get it with Python, and it'll be an object-oriented layer underneath me, and I'll go on with that. So for Pi, Qt5 is copywritten, but it's also open. You so long as you don't try to mess with it, you can download it, use it for whatever you need, learn from it. No one's going to come down on your head for it. If you're using it I don't know if you're using it in a commercial tool set, you may have to discuss it with the lawyers. Is the cat trying to get in the video, or is it just you? Okay. I want to gain experience. IDEs, everyone loves an IDE. PyCharm is one, and Tech with Tim, he goes into an entire, I think it's an hour video alone on PyCharm. It's free. You can download and install. JetBrains makes it. JetBrains makes a whole lot of nice tools. And Visual Studio can be used to develop Python in addition to VS Code. Typically, where I was at Harris, Visual Studio would be used for Python code because you had it on your machine. Many people used VS Code as well because the lab machines tended to have a whole family of tools on it, VS Code being one of them. PyCharm, I've run into it in small engineering outfits. They tend to use it in-house because they're attempting to make a jig to jigger together to their product in order to make it behave correctly. And lastly, my next moves, I'm trying to build my .edu finds because on .edus, they also have the homework assignments for Python, and I'm trying to use those in order to build my skill set up in Python. I'm trying to reverse engineer Task Coach, which was written in Python. And I'd like to learn more about the drag and drop functionality, the interface functionality, and some of the software handling that they have for events in Mutt, in Task Coach. Task Coach is more or less like a heavy-duty to-do list with quick dependencies and internal logic. Whereas Mutt is a mailing system. It's you use Mutt when you want to send or read email. And it runs fine. It has a good speed to it. It handles fine. I was sort of curious about how Mutt handles mail communication signals because it was never ported to anything else but Sun OS. And I was wondering if I could get it to run in Windows. And I'm still reverse engineering Insteon home automation systems, which is me as I always do. And I was hoping on a February 2021 follow-up on this presentation. Any new questions?
This is excellent. I think that with the IDEs, VS Code is definitely gaining momentum.
Mm-hmm. We had it in house, and it was a case of when you're in house, you can't bring anything new in, unless it's been vetted. And they already brought the stuff in. It was on one of their servers, so I looked at it as this is a good idea to learn how to use it across two faces. One IDE being the one at home, which would probably be PyCharm, and the one at work being VS Code because they don't want you to be messing around with something that they don't have in house.
Yeah, I've been using VS Code. It's solid.
Yeah.
How'd it go, guys?
Somebody mentions in chat Spider. I don't think I've ever heard of that one.
What?
No. Actually,
You.
I have heard of Spider, but I have only heard of it.
It's the default that comes with Anaconda.
Oh.
Ah, there you go.
I use Spider every day
Okay.
because it comes with Anaconda.
There you go.
Okay. Your feedback's welcome.
Do you have a GitHub for the like reverse engineering projects you're going to be working on?
I mean, what am I going to try out coming out of GitHub?
Yeah, like do you have any like code up that you're like working through projects while you're learning?
No, one of the stranger issues is someone had made mention of it. Um, I had stuff up on GitHub and I brought it all down to try to make better organization of it. And what I'm doing now is I'm demolishing the wreckage of my past on GitHub. And what I'm trying to do now is put it back in a more sane, more orderly fashion because as I'm going toward web, trying to put more web in. I used to live for a long time at relational database systems and embedded systems. Now what I'm trying to do is go into more web development as well as more desktop development. So what people are advising me to do is reorganize what you have set out there in GitHub so that as you're doing reverse engineering or you're writing new stuff or you're learning new stuff, put it in a more orderly fashion because it's going to have to be your presentation when you go into an employer's place.
Yeah, somebody mentioned Jupyter in the chat. That is also it's an excellent tool, especially for presentations.
They are considering actually, you know how people write papers for publication,
Mhm.
engineering, medical, scientific papers. They're trying to advise people to get out of the older scheme of make a Word document that's half a mile long. They
Yeah,
want to write Jupyter notebooks.
yeah.
And one of the issues that come up has been how is it's a good question. If you give out a Jupyter notebook, how is it going to stop plagiarism? To me, it was like nothing's stopping you from doing plagiarism now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's
I'm
my
not sure
question.
anything's really changed.
Right.
Yeah,
It's still text. No matter what, it's text
yeah.
Right.
So it was
and pictures.
yeah, it was a case of if it's plagiarism now, it ain't going to change simply because
Right.
you changed the format. I think what they're really worried about is can you somehow electronically elicit something that will bypass a plagiarism detector. And I just looked at it and I said, you can always bypass a plagiarism detector just to get crafty enough.
Right. In fact, if you submit a paper and it doesn't have a certain amount of plagiarism detected, the professor looks at that strangely because that means you didn't quote any other sources.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I've learned in some cases I've had to quote sources. In one case, I found out they do read your bibliography because you're not supposed to be quoting your own paper in your bibliography.
But it's a good paper.
Yeah, but
You got it. You got it.
yeah. I mean, he said, Dan, this is recursive. And I go, well, you taught us recursion about 3/4 ago. No, it was a workable paper. It was a strange. I admitted to him, but yeah, if quoting yourself is looks weird, but you got to consider. I'm taking a concept that's all the way back in the paper, and I decided no, I'm going to quote it. Make it a footnote because I didn't want to really rip anybody off, but I also wanted to make absolutely clear where I was getting it from.
It's kind of you're making links to documents.
Yeah. So for the Jupyter notebooks, no, it is in one respect for Jupyter notebooks. What I did like was the interactive capability of of the system provides you the ability to stuff your data directly into the notebook. And I'm wondering if Jupyter notebooks are valid for patent fights in the courtroom. Because right now, when I have an industrial notebook, it's a piece of paper, and I got to write on every page. This is what I did. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what, and what I'm thinking of is Jupyter seems to have a lot of the format available to it. It can actually handle industrial data and be used as patent material.
Possibly. Yeah, you're putting code into it.
True. It may work and may not. How'd it
Yeah.
go for you guys? Everyone happy?
It's really, really good. I appreciate your stepping stone document there. I like your Danism.
It came about because you used this thing is like is presented landscape, and normally I'm writing these notes in portrait mode, and somebody said no, turn it sideways so they can see it, and then write down what you're doing, and I said that's fine, but you remember when I'm writing it and I'm writing it electronically, I set Word for a 22 by 22 piece of paper. So it's huge, but the idea behind it is I know exactly. I have plenty of room to write. I have no problems. So I had to,
Good.
yeah. I can tend to sit down to work as it does now. I tend to do this because it's broken up but not tightly packed. I use it as fluffer material during the daytime because I'm usually busy doing something else. This usually doesn't take that much time to write up and draw, and I keep stuffing it into the document. The idea is, okay, what are you going to do next after all this is over? Which is maybe a couple weeks away. And this was for like 1st of September.
Yeah, this is really good because it hits on the high points of so many different aspects between the MOOCs and the tutorials. But the thing that I always point people to is that Python tutorial within the Python docs. If somebody's looking to really just get off the ground, it really does do a great job of just that. And you got them all in there.
Yeah, because they did say that one of the things you want to write, one of the first projects you want to write, that's one of the screen ones, which has the one of the videos has this guy who's sitting there. He's presenting, okay, this is what you want to do in Python, and his idea was the first project you want to write is a web scraper. And I thought about it, and I said, what I really need is a web scraper. It goes through the first 5 screens of a Google search and takes those and stuffs it into one of these. Because usually what you want to see is the first 5 sheets, first 5 searches. And
What's the second sheet you're talking about here?
pardon? No. That's usually when you're doing a Google search to that extent, you're going to get like I noticed the good ones are in the top 5. What I did notice is that because I've got Brave, Opera, Microsoft Edge, and 2 other ones on my desktop right now for browsers, they don't show the same thing in the same order. But however, if you go into the first 5, query fetches, they are not identical, but they are just as useful. So it's a case of, okay, where's this thing? Where, should I really use it? If it doesn't resonate with you, I just usually leave it to the concrete.
Yeah, it is interesting how the different Google searches will absolutely return different results from depending on what your cookies are, which browser you're using.
Mm-hmm.
There's a privacy thing there.
Uh-huh.
Not.
I did discover that one of the strangest things I did as a beginning user is I used to recycle my cookies, and I found that if you save cookies over a period of like 2 to 6 months and switch them on the fly, you can dramatically change your Google results.
Yeah, I think Google lets you promote your search results too.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just optimized by algorithm as you would think.
Yeah, no, they're doing. There's something in the background. I've long suspected they do something with it. Because I expected almost every search. The order may not be the same, but I expected the top 50 or so to be about the same, just out of order. And I noticed that the top 50 don't always have them in order. So
I've heard people talking lately about DuckDuckGo. I haven't tried that much.
Yeah. One fun thing that you can do is a link I just posted in Zoom chat is trackthis.link.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a new way of doing incognito. It's essentially hiding in plain sight. So it just opens up a whole bunch of tabs on a whole bunch of random stuff. to make you look like that kind of a person.
Camouflage.
Yeah, right. It's pretty tricky.
You top out at, I know when I topped out around a few hundred tabs.
Yeah.
And I didn't really top out my system. I topped out. I couldn't tell if I was opening more tabs or not.
Yeah, I stopped knowing if it was working.
Yeah, so I said, no, I can't tell if it's working, so I'm not going to, why punish this poor box?
And what you can do is use one browser to do the all the different tabs, but then use another one to do your real work.
Browser fingerprinting will figure out that it's a different browser and a different use case. So,
I s-
well,
Yeah.
But does it actually? Can it actually see the different browser like group? Because isn't a tab pretty self-contained?
yes, but I mean, you're still sending a whole bunch of data with every tab that you open, right? So then you can fingerprint and know that each tab was opened by you. So with track this though, what it's doing is it's saying like those bots know that it's you, right? On all 100 tabs that it opened. However, it thinks that you actually care about those things.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like even if you go to another browser, like you're changing your fingerprint enough,
So that yes.
right?
Like you can have the track this in one set of tabs on a browse, like grouped on a browser window, and then have another separate browser window of the same type of browser
Mm-hmm.
doing the stuff that you want to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. So like track this. Like once you do it, you just close that window that you made and then just keep
Right.
going. I just
Yeah.
do it every so often.
Yeah,
I think today I'm going to be filthy rich. So
Right, because you're building up a bunch of cookies, right?
Yep.
That they're interested in.
I can see the whole crowd. Oh well. Josh, folks requested a recording, apparently. And how do
We'll
you?
provide a recording
Okay.
and
Yes.
the document for that matter.
Okay.
Mhm.
So how do people find these things?
We usually put them up on YouTube.
Okay. Oh, good
Yep.
God! I'm up on YouTube before the rest of me is. Who gets the check?
We will send you a cut.
Okay.
yeah. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, I think, and like 7,000 views or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
then you can apply for monetization.
Yo.
So like the Rock Dev YouTube channel
Mhm.
has something like 40 something subscribers and hundreds of views.
Uh-huh.
So
We're
It's
not
gonna-
even at that.
it's gonna take a minute.
Yep.
Let's just say we're never making money on YouTube.
I'm gonna one of my Python projects should be simulated users for YouTube.
I think that's why you have to apply. They try to figure out the validity of your base.
Well, for everybody, I hope it was a good presentation.
Cut the recording now.